This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac, Jack, Jim Big Football Show as we start off your Sunday morning here. And we're going to, first let me start off by thanking Jim, Jeff, Coat, and Byron Williams for sending me 2 jerseys. They have their own show. They're guests on our show. They're you see them on Wednesday nights in their show, the J&B Talking Shop. Unbelievable guys. They do a lot for their communities, and we love having them on. So, Byron, if you're out there watching, Jim, thank you again for contributing to the sports corner here at the Mac and Jack.
Well, Mac, I know you're such a huge Cowboy fan. You kind of guys it and everything, but I know that jersey means a lot to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, it means a lot because it comes from you, Jim, not because it comes from the Cowboys. Trust me. So guys, we have here, I'm your host, Mac, your co-host, legendary boxing Hall of Fame writer and football guru, Jack Hirsch.
D-line guru. Guru.
Yes. Okay. And the Philly sports guy dropping in as he always does on every Saturday, of course, Sunday, and 2-time Super Bowl champion, Jim Jeffcoat. So good morning, everybody, and welcome.
Oh, I thought those were earrings. I thought he had earrings on.
Yeah, those are some big earrings.
Those are what Super Bowl trophies look like.
Yeah.
Well, you could have given Matt Pags a better introduction. You should have said Pags representing the NFC East Division leading Philadelphia Eagles.
That's
I could have said that.
He's trying to kiss my ass a little bit after giving me a cheap shot before he came on. I get it.
Well, we don't have a good show.
And Jack probably wearing his Jets sweatshirt, the old-time Jets sweatshirt too, and hoping that the Jets can maybe make something out of their season this year. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but that's just my opinion.
But it's obvious, being a Jets fan, there's no accountability from Jack. The quarterback has no accountability, so Jack has none.
Right. Jack's quiet. Wow. Thank you, Jim. That's the first thing.
Sometimes it's better. I've learned one thing. It's better sometimes not to throw the ball, just take the loss. So I'm kind of quiet. Yeah.
All right. So again, as Jack mentioned, the Eagles are in first place in the NFC East. Playing really good ball. Got to give them credit, even though I'm a Stone Cold Giants fan, and I really hate the Eagles more than I hate the Cowboys, Jim. So I'm glad to see that they're. No, I'm not glad at all that they're in first place, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but here's the issue that all the teams have is obviously the Cowboys have to play the Eagles, Washington, and.
Oh, hold on. How did that first game go?
Let me finish. Let me finish. You don't even know what I want to say. The problem is that the Giants and Eagles have to play twice, and Washington has to. They play them again.
Washington doesn't play us again.
I think don't they play once? Oh, you're right. You're right.
We beat them the first time.
Good morning, Keith.
Gentlemen, is that all those teams are coming after each other now. They're going to be the NFC East teams have to play enough of them in that division. And this is the best division right now in pro football.
I would agree with that.
It is the best division.
Keith Engle from TGI Sports Talk. Great host. Great show. Thanks for coming in today, Keith.
I saw Pags here. Well, I'm glad to be here, guys. But I saw Pags here. I knew this had to be an Eagles conversation.
It's what happens when you are the best team in the NFL.
It does happen. I know from experience. Yes, I do know.
They are not the best. They are not the best team in the NFL. They would not be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They would not beat the Buffalo Bills. So they are not the best team in the NFL, Pat.
Hold on. The Jets beat the Buffalo Bills. I wouldn't be saying anything of that.
Well, that's one game, Pax. I mean, it happens,
Well, exactly. All we would be playing is one game. I wouldn't have a 3-game series with them.
Would you let Keith please give us an update on the Aaron Judge contract?
No, I will not do that. This is a football show, Jack. Baseball we'll talk about, when it's time to talk baseball. Right now,
no news, Jack.
How about college football? It was an interesting
get
game yesterday.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. There's a lot of upsets, and then the rankings are all over the place right now. We'll get to that.
I'll let Max steer the ship.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Somebody with some smarts out there. So let's take a look at the NFL standings. As Pags has said, the Philadelphia Eagles are 9-1. Dallas right now is at 8-3. The Giants are 7-4. Washington at 6-5. So, Pags, since you're on top, you say the Eagles are the best team in football. I disagree with that 100%. I think Tampa Bay might even be better than them.
Wow.
But what do you think? Do you think that that they're going to be playing the Giants twice? Can the Giants split with the Philadelphia Eagles?
If they play like they played Sunday, no. Again, the problems with the Giants remain the same. Daniel Jones, who hasn't played bad football, just doesn't have anywhere to go with the football. And if you shut down Barkley, you shut down the offense. So that's going to be the Giants' problem. And their defense didn't play well Sunday either, which is been kind of their calling card this year. But could they do it? Of course. Will they do it? They better get better. I don't know how they're gonna, because they're not. I don't think Byron Williams is coming out of retirement to play wide receiver for them anytime soon.
Right.
And Eagles are good. 9-1 is 9-1, and they played some dominant football at times. It's hard to look at. Bill Parcells always said, "You are what your record says you are." This team's 9-1. They're the best team in football until somebody proves they're not. It's going to be fun to watch them play. Again, look at the NFC. You tell me who the contenders are besides the Eagles. I can't find one. I can't find one.
I think the Cowboys could be contenders.
Maybe after this, they look much better. They would probably, I would say, be the number one contender against the Eagles right now. Everybody loves the 49ers. I need to see more from the 49ers. And they need to stay healthy for another 6 weeks or whatever it is, whatever they've got left. And that's always an iffy thing with all of them. Their key players, Kittle, McCaffrey, Samuel to a certain extent, and Jimmy G. So they got to stay healthy till they get to the playoffs, if they get to the playoffs.
Oh, the 49ers will get to the playoffs, Keith.
Yeah.
Well, I think they will. Now they're getting
that division. That division's weak. I mean, you got the Cardinals. Seattle's playing good football, but are they a great team? No.
They may come back to earth here this rest of the season.
And the Rams are, and that's some of the time that makes you think about when the Rams put all that money into winning the Super Bowl. The next year, you see what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was worth it, Jim. They won the Super Bowl, so it was worth it.
Back to the Eagles for a second. I made two really bad calls in the preseason because the two guys I was not sold on were Jalen Hurts and Tua, and they both proved me extremely wrong so far. They played great football.
They have.
And I can't take anything away from them. The Eagles have played great football. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Giants. Of course, that's my team. They're definitely in the playoff chase. If at least a wild card. I don't think they'll win the division this year. I don't think they're going a long ways in the playoffs. I think they'll win one playoff game. Yeah. But listen, I agree with you, Keith. The Giants have been doing it with no wide receivers at all. Saquon Barkley hasn't been running well lately because of the offensive line being banged up. And it's not really an excuse. It's a reason, right? I mean, we can make excuses, but these are reasons. And, their offensive line has a lot of young guys on it, players that they got through free agency that, aren't that good. So if Saquon Barkley isn't running well and the wide receivers, even though Slayton has made a couple big catches for him, if they can't get that together, I mean, the wild card is the only thing I can see, and maybe a playoff win. Yeah, I think that way. And again, these things are all relative, right? I mean, if we talk to Giant fans or even Jet fans before the season and said, after 11 games, you'll be 7-4 and you'll be in the playoffs at that point, I think Giant fans would have been ecstatic. But
when you start as well as they did, now it becomes not as good because you were 6-1 at one point, and now you're 7-4, and it's all a matter of perspective. So this team's probably where they should be at this point. And I just, week after week, I read on the Giants groups about, getting out Daniel Jones. And stop blaming Daniel Jones. He didn't draft himself 6th in a draft, by the way. The Giants did. And he is not the reason this team loses football games. I can't point to one game and say Daniel Jones cost him that game.
Yeah.
He doesn't have places to go with the football, and he's still found a way to come back in fourth quarters 3 times this year. I don't know how, but he has.
I agree. Jack, I'll get your thoughts on Washington, even though you're a Jet fan. I'm sorry about that. But Washington, they're 6-5, also alive in the playoff hunt, maybe wild card. What do you think? Do you think they make the wild card to playoffs this year?
I'm looking at the standings here with the Giants, and the NFC is so bad. The Giants were 7-4 right now. They can go 2-4 the rest of the way, have a 9-8 record, and actually grab the 3rd wild card spot. Keep in mind, though, they did lose to Seattle. So if Seattle loses out on the division to the 49ers, which I think is ultimately going to happen, Seattle would have a tiebreaker, but the Giants could still get the 3rd slot if they could hold Washington off and a couple of other teams that are mediocre. Washington's at 5-5. They're like a game and a half behind the Giants.
6-5.
So there's a lot of interesting things, even with the division lead. All the Eagles have to do split with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys aren't going to win the division because they're 2 games behind right now. But the question is, who's going to get that valuable bye? I think that's what the Eagles are eyeing right now, the bye. I know you asked me about Washington. Washington seems to be a little bit on an upswing, but really the caliber of that team is somewhat similar to the Giants.
Well, Jack, last year when the bye, both teams that got the bye lost. If you remember, Tennessee, and who else was it in the
Packers.
Yeah, but your old coach Jimmy Johnson once gave a big speech saying it's really not that hard to get to the Super Bowl if you get the best record. You just have to win 2 games at home. Think, especially as a player, you're in that position, Jim. Think of that clear path. We just have to win 2 games at home against teams we think we're better than.
But right now it's all timing, and that's the problem. The NFL has changed, as we all know. It's not as physical, and you can't do the things that you could do in the past. I mean, with the players, they can't have the practices they used to, and that makes it more difficult. And you lose your time in some of that. And not saying that all teams are going to do that, and now if you get a bye, you don't have a chance. But it makes it more difficult when you lose that timing.
You'd rather have that 1 week off, I think, because you automatically advance 1 round, plus you get to heal up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning, Rick.
Feasted on that for 20 years. The years they won the Super Bowl, they most always were at home and had those 2 games and didn't have to go on the road, and that's what helped them a lot.
Well, when your 2 Super Bowl championships, did you get buys in the first round?
Yes, and the first, but we practiced. We practiced.
Yeah,
because
they got the buys, so which were beneficial.
Our practices were more difficult than a lot of our games because we went after each other. Yeah, and that was just that competitive nature.
Good morning to Rick. Glad you're with us this morning, Rick. Giants are going anywhere. Injuries have hurt them, and teams have them figured out. I agree with the part about the injuries. The Giants do run a basic defense with the blitzing.
They blitz more than in the NFL.
Yeah, and with the blitzing. So I don't know if they haven't figured out or not. I just think, as Keith brought up, that the Giants really don't have anybody to throw to, and Saquon Barkley isn't running well.
And also, when you talk about their defense, because Martindale blitzes so much, you're putting those DBs in man coverage, and you had 2 DBs that were backups, and you're trying to put them in there. And even with Darnay Holmes, I know I played with his dad, Derek, and he was a running back. But Darnay Holmes is a good player, but you're putting him in a difficult because that's hard. when you're playing against these receivers now. And a lot of these quarterbacks, the good ones, can read the blitzes, and they know where they're going right now. They know the hot route.
Listen, I do agree with that. Let's see what Alan has to say. Good morning, Alan. How you doing today? He's saying you look at what they have coming up ahead. Red Hot Commanders team twice with the Eagles in the middle. That's true. And and tell me if I'm wrong, guys. Chase Young will be out for a significant amount of time.
I already may play today, actually.
No, they said he wasn't going to.
Did they? Okay. This was yesterday morning. So, okay.
Yeah. But Washington, I think they've Hendricks or whatever his name is, has done a nice job. He's done a nice job. And I don't think Wentz is going to be back this year. I think they're going to bench him.
No. I think the team believes in Heineke. I think they believe in him. That's important, right, Jim? I mean, you got to believe in your quarterback.
They play hard for him. And they do have some talent. McLaren and the running backs, Robinson. I mean, they do have some talent. Nobody's ever questioned. And now they're starting to, it's us against the world.
Yeah.
And you got to give them credit. But we'll see this next half because there's going to be it's still teams are going to go up and teams are going to go down.
One thing I have a problem with Washington is that I feel like they need to manufacture excitement. They have to figure it out. Like, again, it was like they played ho-hum and then it's like they're rallying around their coach because of his mother passing. And not saying that that's not a bad thing and you want to rally around coach. But when you need that extra push mentally, that there's a disconnect somewhere. Like you shouldn't need any extra added interest in the game to get yourself up for the game. And I feel like that's what's got to happen with them.
But the interesting thing about, and I agree with you, but the interesting thing about Washington, if you look at their previous games, they were close. They should have beat Tennessee.
Yeah.
They should have done this. And now they're winning those games they should have won. They would be in a better position. And I'm not saying they're a great team, but they should have won some of those games. They lost by 1 touchdown.
They should have won. They should have won some of the games that the Giants should have lost, actually. The same situation. Yeah. The Giants were in that same boat, and they won those games.
Yes.
Where Washington lost those games.
Yes.
Alan Perez says Dan Snyder selling the team would help. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that really makes a major difference whether Dan Snyder owns a team or doesn't?
Depends on who buys the team.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want
to like Daniel Snyder would put money into guys to sign guys. You forgot, Mac, even with the Giants with Landon Collins, they put out the money to sign Landon Collins.
He's still a huge distraction.
Yeah, but it's not like he was totally cheap. I don't think at this point Daniel Snyder's any type of distraction to the players. He's irrelevant. They don't see him. They just hear about him on the news and they go about their business.
How can the charges against this organization not be a distraction for every single person in that organization? It's impossible. It's in the news every day in Washington.
You're exactly right.
The matter is that his wife is really doing a great job in distracting the distraction.
I would agree.
She's been a really good face of that franchise. And even though they boo the name, every time they hear Snyder, they boo his name. She has been more like a godsend to that franchise in comparison to what her husband has been. Yeah, and I feel like that there's been a little bit of a rally around her. And I've heard this from fans and I've heard this from players that they are. Yeah, again, this is one of these little extra added things that I feel like that they need that you shouldn't need as a player. That they are doing certain things that to get themselves up for these games, maybe because the distractions are heavy. But I feel that his wife is doing a great job of being the glue that holds this whole thing together.
About this too. They're going to sell that franchise or that team for $7 billion.
Yeah. So there's only a couple people that can play Jeff Bezos.
That's right. Yeah. But I don't think Bezos is going to buy them. I think he's going to buy Seattle in 2025.
Well, that would makes more sense for him. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, guys, let's get to the NFC North. You got Minnesota at 9-2, Detroit 4-7, Green Bay at 4-7, Chicago at 3-8. Let's start at the bottom. Pags, Chicago, their quarterback is very similar, as a running quarterback to Jalen Hurts. He's a little bit taller, a little bit more. He's more of a straight line runner than Hurts is. Who Hurts, he jukes you a lot. What do you think, Pags? At 3-8, Chicago, do they have a chance at maybe finishing like in second place or something like that?
The Bears?
Yes.
No.
Well, they're only one game out of second place. So I guess
No, actually, I think the team that
Bears, Mac. They're 3-8, 4-7. Whether they
actually, I had a little bit of a hot take before we switched over. I had a little bit of a hot take before we switched over. I would not be surprised. Yeah, I'm gonna say it anyways. If Donald Trump tries to make a play for the Washington Commanders.
Wow.
Well, that's really hot, Bags.
That is a little bit of a hot take. Go back to Justin Fields. Who cares?
Well, the Bears fans.
I'm sure there's a couple Chicago fans out there. Listen,
I'll tell you something
take
about
away that
Justin
fishbowl
Fields.
game, and they should be 2-9.
No, Justin Fields has been running out of necessity. He's been trying to stay in the pocket, but they've had such a miserable offensive line, the Bears. He's had to run. He got sacked 11 times in one game as a rookie. I mean, he got abused. So he runs out of necessity.
Yeah, I think that whole franchise right now is a train wreck.
With all that said, though, they could still finish second to the question because 6 wins might finish second.
Wait,
Right.
wasn't Jim
Wins could
singing
finish
the
second.
virtues of the Bears at the beginning of the year in the preseason? Didn't Jim say, look out for the Bears?
Well, you know what? And I thought that Detroit is going to be a better team. I wouldn't be surprised that Detroit steps
I
up.
think he meant real Bears.
Now
Why are you throwing Jeff under the bus, Jack?
No.
I said I like Justin Fields.
Jim, if the Bears were 8-3, I'd give Jim his props.
I
But
like
they're
Justin
3-8.
Fields. I think Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I like him as a
I like
quarterback.
Justin Fields.
I think you have to put things around him, obviously receivers.
They
He's
got
in the
Joel
same
Conway.
situation as Daniel Jones, but he
Yeah.
doesn't
They
have
got
a running game.
They got Conway, the Bears, so they did get him a big-time receiver.
Pickles,
I think Jim.
Now I'm
Nate
thinking of the old-time Bear
Claypool.
receiver.
Is he really a big time receiver? Is
No.
Claypool really? No.
No.
Well,
And-
for the Bears, he is. He's better than what they have.
So would I be if they picked me at 62.
Yeah.
But,
I can see Keith out there
I like
playing football right
Fields. I think he has some upside. I do think he has some upside. I think he's going to have to learn to play the position as a passer.
Right.
But you have to put things around them. And obviously, what you guys have said is right. They got to get an offensive line, or they got to get somebody to coach it like the Giants did. The Giants, everybody was worried about their offensive line, but until the previous couple of games, their offensive line hasn't been an issue.
And Pickle
I'm gonna
says
tell you guys-
Justin instead of Jalen. I know that. That's Jalen's brother is Justin.
I will tell you this. It's not in season, but if the season ended today and I'm the Giants and the Bears offer me Justin Fields for Daniel Jones even up, I make the deal. I take Justin Fields.
Why would
Bears
the
aren't
Bears?
making
Why
it.
would you do that?
Why would the Bears? do that?
Much more upside. He's going to be one of the better QBs in the league, Justin Fields. And the couple
Bears
of
would-
I
years
would wonder
Bears would
exactly
never
why
do
the
it.
Bears would
talking
do
about
that.
him as one of the better quarterbacks.
Why would the Bears offer the Giants?
Oh, the Bears
Justin
wouldn't
Fields?
do it. I mean, if I'm the Giants, I would trade Daniel Jones for Justin Fields if the Bears.
Why don't you like Daniel Jones?
He hates Daniel Jones. He hates the man.
You know what I think it is? It's because
What's
you
that?
have Zach Wilson. That's
Yeah, well,
No, that might be why.
the problem, you know who's not held accountable a lot of times. You talk about the players, the coaches, how they develop players, bring them along. Case in point, Ryan Tannehill. He was on the Adam Gase with the Miami Dolphins. He was awful. And this is a guy who was drafted 8th overall, okay? And then he goes to Tennessee. He's a new quarterback. I'm not saying he's one of the best in the league, but he's a pretty good quarterback.
But it's a different system because you got that beast running the ball, Derrick Henry. Right. And that takes a lot of pressure off of the quarterback.
Jim, when Henry was out last year, they were successful. Keep that in mind.
No, they weren't. They lost.
Quarterbacking in the playoffs. Yeah, he threw 3 picks.
Yeah, wake me up when he wins a big game.
Without Henry, he was out half the year.
Oh yeah, so the last 3 weeks of the season, they wound up going 2-1. They barely got past to win those 2, and then they wound up losing in the first game that they played in the playoffs.
I thought you were on my side, so now I got to remind you who beat the Eagles in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, but they were a much better team.
They lost to the Cowboys last year in the playoffs, didn't they?
They lost to Tampa Bay in the playoffs, didn't they?
Yeah. Come on, get your facts right. Get your facts right there. When was the last playoffs?
Jim's got
1978
Bears in the Super Bowl. The Eagles lost.
Maybe they played the Cowboys the last game of the season. I don't know why I had it in my head they lost.
Right, they did play the Cowboys the last game of the season. In a game that we didn't care about, we had all of their scrubs in there, and the Cowboys thought they did something great and scored 50 points, and then Quinn scored 24 points against the 49ers.
But they did.
What?
And they're going to do it on New Year's Christmas Eve again.
Are we going to be talking about this 5 years from now? I mean, geez.
Real quick, Jim.
This show is off the track.
I need Jerry Jones's number so I could ask if he could fly me down there for the game, because I can't be there at the game, and I'm sure he loves trolling me. So I just see him fly me down there.
Jerry doesn't even know you're alive, so don't worry.
That's not true. That's not true. He loves trolling me. He loves me.
Oh
my God!
This show has just gone off the track.
Jack initiated this.
I know he did. Jack
I love Jerry Jones, but I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, I think he's the real reason the Cowboys Super Bowl.
I'm sure he loves you too, Jack. I'm sure
Jerry Jones was
thinks about you constantly. I don't know.
All those Super Bowls the last 30 years.
Hey, Jim.
I can't argue with you.
Sorry, Jim.
Where were you for that play? The Leon Lett play against Miami.
Actually, I was on the sideline. I was next to Jimmy.
Yeah,
I wasn't in there.
Yeah,
thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Right. They showed that play. They showed that play on some social media.
They always going to show that.
I went looking for you, but I didn't find you.
I was on the sideline.
But wasn't it Leon who showboated and got the ball knocked out by Don B? Yeah. You could have been a
guys.
If he didn't do that.
Hey, Matt, it's not good.
All right, listen. We're going back to the North Division here. Green Bay and Detroit are tied at 4-7. Who, Jack, would have thought that would have happened in the beginning of the year?
I picked the Packers to go to the Super Bowl, and like some of you other guys, I hold myself accountable for poor prediction, but I did pick the Bills to win the Super Bowl, so I could still be redeemed there. You know what's bothering me? Aaron Rodgers is claiming he's playing with a broken thumb or whatever. Why are we hearing this now?
Go down the Colts, get it healed.
Why would he be going public with it? I wouldn't want anyone to know if I'm a QB that my thumb is all messed up. Don't you want to keep these things quiet if you can?
He's all messed up in general.
The NFL office get involved if that hasn't gotten reported. Don't they have injury reports? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, Aaron Rodgers just never got into a flow with his receivers. It's either one or two things. Either he didn't put in the time like it was mentioned in the offseason, and maybe his receivers on balance, the majority of them just aren't that good.
Well, my thing is,
I got to jump, guys.
All right.
All right,
Keith. Jump. Great
All right.
talking with you guys. Jim, sorry that bear pick didn't work out for you. Next time, when you say, Jack, if you see bears in your backyard, they're dangerous, make sure he understands you're not talking about the team. You're talking about the animal.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, but
Okay.
my thing with Aaron
Okay.
Rodgers is
So there you
Aaron's
go.
on-
Keith,
he's on his own agenda.
Keith, have a great day. Have a great show,
day,
folks.
Keith.
Tune in to
right, guys.
TPI Sports after you watch us repeat.
After, yes, you can watch me after. See you later. Bye.
All right, Keith, take care.
But my thing
There
on
you go,
Aaron Rodgers-
Keith Engle, and we'll
sorry.
bring him. We'll bring in Robert Butler.
Oh,
How you
man.
doing today,
Hey,
Robert?
morning, guys.
all
Jamie,
right.
Jim,
Morning, Robert.
Jack Mac.
But real
Robert
quick,
only agrees with me, so I can't wait for him to come on.
yeah,
Robert don't agree.
What
with
Jack
that.
said.
yeah.
Yes.
Real quick on Aaron Rodgers, he's on his own agenda. He's making excuses on why he's not playing well. Why he's not playing well is because he never worked with those young receivers. When you got young receivers, you got to train with them. And I don't have any respect for him. And I know he's been the MVP and everything, but it's on him.
I think he's doing too much of that Asamoah stuff, or that Asam Sika or whatever it is. Too much of that psychedelic stuff.
He probably is.
Yeah, that could
Yeah.
be. So Robert, we've been talking about a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. We haven't touched on Tom Brady yet. Two former MVPs, both went to a Super Bowl. What's wrong with them, Robert, this year? I mean, the teams. We know the teams aren't playing well either. But aren't they the ones that are supposed to make the teams better? Aren't they the ones that are supposed to take charge out there?
Yeah, I agree with the guys on that with Aaron Rodgers. I don't, he knows those statistics that I say here just about every week when this comes up about the quarterback making over 12.6% of the salary cap. You trade away your best, most reliable receiver you have chemistry with. I still can't believe why he didn't get in all the work, even if he fly some guys out. That's what Brady does. As far as Tampa is a little bit different. You had a slew of injuries and turnover in Tampa, including the whole offensive line. I think they're on the upswing. All things considered, hey, Brady's 46 years old. I can't believe he's playing as well as he is, considering his age. To be honest.
Well, that's because he's got to sign for another 4 more years because he ain't got no more money.
Earn it back. Yeah, I'd be 50.
FTX. Wipe it out.
That was
Yeah.
That was the best line of Mac you've delivered in a long time. And you talked about Rodgers and Brady. You said both have been to a Super Bowl. That's nice. You said that about Tom Brady. He's been to a Super Bowl.
I'm glad you like that, Jack. Jack, I'm glad you like that. I'd imagine you have torn down your poster of Rodgers in your bedroom there. So, because he's not playing well right now. So,
well, I'm going to be moving. I just packed it up a little.
He's got him doing this.
Let me ask you guys this. Your
That's
opinion.
before the broken thumb.
If the Packers are mathematically out of it with a couple of games to go, do you see what Jordan Love can do? Because they're going to have to deal with re-signing him and not, and they've already invested time in him. But you risk antagonizing Aaron Rodgers. What do you do exactly? And they've been down this road with Aaron Rodgers before, and it was very, very messy. And you can't be sure what Aaron Rodgers has left. For all we know, he's going to come back next year and be the Aaron Rodgers of old. He'll work hard or whatever. But you risk antagonizing him. But you have to see what Jordan Love can do as well. I mean, what do you do?
If you're asking me, I think that I would probably give Love a shot, really wink, wink, and try to get a better draft pick. I don't think this is going to get that much better with Green Bay guys. They need an updated roster here. They knew a slew of talent there. They've got extra picks. That's my motive, but they're so scared of Rodgers. I would rather either work out a trade
Rodgers
or
100% guaranteed.
Yes.
He's
Yeah,
100%
and they're scared to
guaranteed.
death for the guy. So
Yeah,
either way, you got to pay him, Jamie. So why not try to get a better pick and see what you got, Love?
You get such a salary cap hit from Rodgers. That's what they're
Yeah,
afraid
you know
of.
what though? I mean, but when you see all of the stuff, it's only for what, 1 more year?
Yeah.
Or is it two
I think
more?
so with the guarantees.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's
I
2
would
more
take
years,
next
then
year.
you're stuck. If it's one
Yeah.
more year, I'd almost bite the bullet, put Love in there, get rid of them both, and get a quarterback, as you're going to get a pretty high draft pick here with the way that things are going right now. Clarity, I mean, it's the Raiders that look like they're already on the clock. Everybody else is a couple games away from them, I think. So
yeah.
you're
Unless you
going to
count
be with
Houston.
4 or
Unless you
5
count-
wins is going to get you a top 5 pick.
Unless you
And I
count
consider
Houston.
that.
Houston only got 1 win, guys, so they're the worst team in football.
Yeah, Houston
so
had the number one.
I think
they'll
get the
Houston,
first
Carolina. I think.
What quarterback would you pick if you had the number 1 pick? And
If you're asking me today, it's probably Bryce Young, but out of Alabama. But a lot of scouts like this Kentucky guy because he has an NFL release, and it's something worth looking into. You have to make quick decisions in NFL to win, guys, and read defenses. But
Very
a
true.
lot of it depends on where these guys fall. Stroud didn't look good yesterday, but I'm sure he's still going to go pretty high.
Let's take a quick look at some
Caleb
of the.
Williams from USC.
Well, he's not eligible this year, Jim.
Yes, he is.
Is he really? I thought it was next
Because
year.
he played last year.
Well,
so
he's a true
he's been
freshman
going
last
to-
year.
Yeah. So this is his sophomore year. He can come out.
I thought he
Well-
needed 3 years.
Well,
No.
guys, let's take a look at some of the comments that have been coming in. Brady is entering the George Blanda zone. I mean, there's a
I said
blast.
George Blanda.
There's a blast from the past. A field goal kicker and a quarterback. Brady cannot kick field goals. I've seen him try. He can't do it. So George Blanda, a big Raider quarterback. I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame or not. If not, he probably
Yeah,
should be.
but George Blanda, when he was old, 47, 48, he could hardly move around at quarterback. I remember seeing him play. And he made some big field goals at the end. So it was like a national phenomenon. This old guy playing football at his age. It was a big deal. But he wasn't nearly the
Jack,
quarterback.
you might be the only one in this telecast that's seen George Blanda play.
And then I sat down. I watched Super Bowl I, the first Super Bowl.
I know.
You know what,
you were
Jim?
there.
Real fast. I was watching a little bit of the Texas Tech game yesterday, and their quarterback's last name is Gabriel. Any relation to Roman Gabriel?
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Okay.
He's from a little town in Texas, Gabriel, but he's not related to him.
These are nuggets you only
What
get.
was that final score? 100-98.
Something like that. I didn't see the game. I was watching
Overwhelmed.
LSU and A&M.
These are the nuggets you get listening to the Mac and Jack and Jim football show, knowing exactly what high school or college they came from. So there you go.
No. One of my partners is from Eastland, where he's from. So that's why. And he always
Yeah,
tells
I
me.
thought he might have been like a great, like a grandchild or a great
I
grandchild.
didn't know. No.
Okay, so we've got a little disagreement here. We got Perez saying the Packs are going to win, and we got Pickles here saying that there's always an excuse for Aaron Rodgers. So there you go. I don't know. Yeah. So let's hop over to the AFC East, where you have, of course, Buffalo's in first, Miami at 8-3, Miami at 7-3, the Jets at 6-4, and you have New England at 6-5. Keith left, so we won't talk about New England. Hell with New England. Who cares about New England? So Buffalo at 8-3. Jim, you played for Buffalo. Your ending years there as a specialist, as defensive pass rusher. And did a heck of a job too. What do you think? Do you think Buffalo is better right now than Kansas City?
Well, they did beat Kansas City, but I don't think they're better. I think the injuries, Von Miller is a big loss. They don't know how long he's going to be out. They don't think he'll be out for the rest of the season, but that's a huge loss for him. And this team that scares me, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is Miami. Because every week you think they're going to get killed, and nobody can guard those two receivers. No matter what you do, And that's what it is. Now, can they run the ball efficient enough to continue? But those two receivers are special.
Yeah. Right.
I thought Jim was going to say the team that scared them would be the Baltimore Ravens there because they have the best run defense, I think, in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, they have an outstanding run defense. So
we're talking about the AFC East. Notice I didn't say anything about the Jets.
Well, they got it.
But the Jets beat Buffalo already, right?
Yes, they did.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure that Buffalo, Jim.
Wow. We're gonna lose games. But obviously it was big winning on Thanksgiving for Buffalo. But losing Von Miller is huge.
Yeah.
How much of that was luck? Hey, listen, when you're playing in a season, you need a little bit of luck.
Yeah,
how much of that was luck?
Probably was a lot of it was luck because him making that Diggs making that catch was pretty good. Getting him in position to win it. So you do have to have a luck, and that's a part of playing football.
Robert, New England in the AFC East, they're 6-5 right now. They refuse to put Zappy in, and I'm gonna write them after the show and tell them that Zappy should be the starting quarterback there. But other than that, they've been playing pretty well. Their defense has had some problems, especially last game. Playing their defense, and you would be surprised with Bill Belichick that their defense would be playing so poorly. Do you think New England has a shot at making the playoffs?
They got a shot, with Denver not playing up to par with the Chargers. That job is Sean Payton. I think it's Sean Payton's for the taking. That's just my opinion. I think Staley's really underachieving, and that opens it up for a New England type of team. They're not really satisfied with Mac Jones. You can tell. They're not too far off the Jets if you think about it as far as the quarterback play going back a week ago, guys. Right. But when when the weather changes, excellent running game. I like the 1-2 punch with Stevenson and Harris there. Hopefully they can keep Hunter. Hunter Henry is a really good weapon for them. I'm glad they got him involved last week. A little controversial call, but that special team, they win with the special teams play Sunday, and then they lose ultimately with one on Thursday. But the room for error is so little with a guy like Mac Jones, and we're starting to see that.
Yeah. So here you go, Pags. I'll let you get back at Jack. We can talk about the Jets. The Jets right now at 6-4. They're going to be playing. I think it's White starting today with the great and famous Joe Flacco as a backup. So, what do you think, Pags? Do you think the Jets will make the playoffs?
I'm looking at that right this very second. And two teams aren't going to make this out of this run: the Jets, the Patriots, the Bengals, and the Chargers. And who are the two that aren't going to make it? I kind of look at it being on the outside looking in, and I also believe that the Chargers will be on the outside looking in. I think, again, same situation that I'll agree with Robert. I think that the coaching situation is starting to loom large over there, and that's going to be a big deal. And it's going to be just a matter of who's going to fire their coach first to be able to grab Sean Payton. And unfortunately, I think that the Chargers will lose out that deal to the Raiders. And I think Sean Payton.
You also got to remember, whoever gets Sean Payton has to give New Orleans something. He's still under contract.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to give him draft picks or money to get
him. And then the other thing that I think about is that Joe Douglas is still a year away. And Joe Douglas is the reason why the Jets are doing so well. I think that he needs, another draft to really start to solidify the holes that he has in his offense and defense. They're playing above their means this year. They've won games that they shouldn't have won. That being said, I don't think they make the playoffs.
All right. There you go. So, Jack, what do you think? You think Pags is right?
I think Pags is wrong. Okay. He's been concentrating so much on his Philadelphia Eagles. He hasn't taken the time beyond this morning to really study the landscape the way it is. Pax is talking about the draft. Okay. Bryce Hall, great running back who the Jets drafted last year, has been out. He's out the year. That's hurt him really badly. The offensive line's gone better. The defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL the Jets have. But you got to address the quarterback situation. I mean, Zach Wilson just wasn't getting the ball to the receivers. What the heck happened to Elijah Moore? He had such great promise last year, and this year was in the outs. It looked like they might trade him at some point when he was rebelling. You know, Garrett Wilson, you know, he hasn't been fully utilized. But Pax is right about this. 4 teams, 2 aren't going to make it. The Chargers are a game behind. New England would have a tiebreaker with the Jets if they have the same record because they beat them twice. Cincinnati, we don't know what to make of them. You know, do they have Super Bowl fatigue? You know, they're 6-4. They're in a good spot. But let's see, and let's not be certain that the Miami Dolphins are 1 game ahead of the Jets are going to keep playing well and have this great record. You know, let's just hold off a little on the Dolphins. I don't think they're as sure thing as, let's say, the Cincinnati, as the Buffalo Bills would be. Yeah, I think the Jets, assuming they beat the Bears today, if they lose to the Bears today, that opens the floodgates, you know, for them to just keep dipping out of the playoff picture. But assuming they beat the Bears today, you know, I think that defense is so elite it could carry him for a while.
Robert, Miami. Yeah. I still have questions with Tua. I still think that he's still got to, you know, he's playing very well right now. But you know, the hip, is he going to be injured? Is he going to be injury prone? You know, I'm not sure. But Miami, with their new coaching staff, has been playing real good ball. Do you see them winning the division?
Well, the defense is not fully healthy. Byron Jones, former Dallas Cowboy, Jim, is still battling back, coming back from that injury. But I do like this Jeff Wilson acquisition at running back. I like that zone block and running scheme because they're going to need that as the weather changes and they start to get into tougher games. Of course, they got a really good matchup today against the 32nd ranked run defense in Houston. But, you know, that's a $64,000 question. If Tua can stay healthy, they got a shot maybe at an AFC championship game with those 2 receivers, and they've got a tight end that they've underutilized all year, and Kaseki, guys. So everything's about Tua not getting that one hit where everybody in the stadium and us around the country take that deep breath and say, oh, man, we hope he's not. Because if Tua is out, they fall. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater can't stay healthy for a full game nowadays. So everything remains on Tua. Their defense is decent. You know, I mean, they still got a pretty good corner there. One of the better cornerbacks in the league. A fair pass rush. I don't see why they can't get into the playoffs and make a run here.
So, Jack,
one thing about Miami, I'm sorry. One thing about Miami is this is their remaining schedule. It's at San Francisco, at the LA Chargers.
Wow.
They play Buffalo at Buffalo. They play Green Bay at home, New England at New England, and the Jets at home. So it is a difficult schedule to finish with.
And look at those pass rushes, guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, any one of those, the Bosa brothers,
that's true.
The Jet, Buffalo, maybe if Miller comes back, one bad hit on Tua, the whole thing falls apart.
That's true.
House of cards down there.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Very true. So let's jump over to the North. Pittsburgh, Jim, I know you got respect for the coach, and you should. He's one of the best coaches, I think, second to maybe Bill Belichick. Yes, 3-7, Jim. You know, it doesn't look like they're gonna go anywhere. There's been talk, I don't know if it's true or not, of Tomlin maybe retiring after this year.
Wow.
So what are your thoughts, Jim? Do you think Pittsburgh do they have a team that may do something by the end of the year? Is Tomlin staying or going? What do you think?
No, they just don't. And Pickett obviously might not be the answer, or isn't the answer. Najee Harris is not playing at a high level. They're talking about taking another running back and taking his position. They got so many issues. They're looking toward the draft right now and seeing if they can find something. But right now, I just don't think Pittsburgh's a good team.
Well, let me mention this to Jim. TJ Watt, him being out, that hurt them badly this year. They're 3-7. I got to believe they'd be at least 4-6, maybe 5-5 with a completely healthy TJ Watt, because he's a rarity. He's a defensive player who's just as important as the quarterback, what he does for that whole defense.
And you could say that, but I just think they got so many issues right now. And then, like I said, this will be Tomlin's first losing season, and he is almost certain that it will be a losing season.
So what do you think about Tomlin? You think that he does retire or step aside after this year?
I wouldn't be shocked because he would be the same thing as Cowher. I'm not saying that Cowher was successful when he retired, but it might be that time. It might need a new voice. And it might be at some point it comes everybody's time. Only one who is never their time is Belichick and Pete Carroll. They can last forever. They're like 90 years old.
They're the ever ready bunnies over there. Robert, who do you think, Robert, would be a good replacement over there in Pittsburgh if the Tomlin steps aside?
Yeah, well, they will probably go with an offensive line head coach. I was reading something a few months ago, and it's still showing to be true right now that they spend the least. They're one of the least invested money-wise teams on an offensive line, and you can tell. I mean, you saw it last year. Pickett's a good athlete, guys, and he could barely get away. So that's really their biggest issue. I don't know how many coordinators they went through over the last 3 or 4 years, but they got pieces. They draft well. They just abandoned that offensive line, and you can tell. And I understand defense, but you really have to pay attention to the quarterback position and the offensive line. I like what Kenny Pickett's done the last few weeks. Just give him a little bit more time there. And I would just look for maybe search coordinators around the league. Just go offense and see what you can get. And Tomlin's very young. He's one of the youngest coaches hired. Maybe he just needs a breather like a Sean Payton last year.
Exactly
and maybe
right.
he comes back
I
somewhere
have
else.
the answer, but Rob, I have the answer. They have the guy on their staff right now who's the most competent guy to replace Tomlin if Tomlin stepped down, Brian Flores. But
Flores, yeah.
He has a lawsuit against the NFL. So if you're knowing it, do you want to hire someone who's suing, the league has these lawsuits out? But Brian Flores would be the best man for the job. He'd be ideal to slot in Tomlin's place. But we don't know what Tomlin's thinking. Maybe Tomlin's a lifer like Pete Carroll. We have no idea unless you know something, especially Jim, you've heard word that we haven't.
No, I just think it's, at some point, you can't keep saying the same things over and over because it gets stale, especially with head coaches.
Yeah.
And his voice might be getting stale to those players now. You need to bring more energy into the building.
Very possible.
With Pat Riley in basketball, he had to move on from the Lakers.
Exactly.
The voice gets stale. Good point. Yeah.
So, guys, before we let Robert go, let's get into college football before we get into the picks. Big news, Robert. Matt Rule has signed as head coach of Nebraska, which is awesome. I mean, I remember the old days when Nebraska and Oklahoma would be going at it all the time. So, what do you think about that move?
Well, last 2 hires at Nebraska, I thought were going to be home runs with Frost, but he's got an impressive record, man, at Temple and at Baylor. I think he just they couldn't get a quarterback right at Carolina. I like his schemes down there. at Carolina. I think it'll be a good hire, but I say it cautiously optimistic.
Let me ask you this question, Robert, on Matt Rule. This is a little bit different. Temple obviously is a major metropolitan area in Philadelphia. We all know. Yeah. And then Waco, if you look at it, they're not that far from Houston. They're not that far from Dallas. And they're not that far from Austin and San Antonio. So they were in a perfect place. This is the most difficult thing because obviously everybody has to fly into Nebraska. They're going to have to fly in Lincoln. They can't just get in the car and drive. So it makes it more difficult. This is not the 80s or 90s. This is a totally different animal now.
Yeah. Recruiting is going to be an issue here. I'm curious to how he's going to go about doing that. But it's changed. But, Miami was good. They were close to metropolitan in the 80s and 90s. In the late 90s and early 2000s, you had USC doing well.
But those are big metropolitan areas. But that's the thing I'm saying is Nebraska and Colorado, those teams have a difficult time getting those kids when they can go to schools closer to their houses and instead of flying in.
Yeah, I mean that's where I look at the actual coach itself, and I think Matt Rule is better than most of the college coaches that are out there. I think the biggest problem that you're going to run into with this hiring is that in 3 years he's going to be back in the NFL.
Possibly.
I think that he was given enough time. I think that if there wasn't this offer right there, because he wanted to work, and I think he wants to get to work right away. So if it wasn't this offer, that he would have waited to get another offer in the NFL. And I think that when he's successful coaching the players that he has, not necessarily the recruiting. Listen, Temple was a major metropolitan area, but nobody went to Temple. If you're a football player, you don't choose Temple. You know what I mean? And that's the way that works. So my thought is that you have that same problem that he's got now, and he's going to out-coach other coaches with the players that he has. And
but
doing that, he's going to wind up back
in recruiting. Demographics are big.
You're right, but like I said, in Temple, he didn't have the players either. But he won games, and I think that this is where coaching, especially in college, great coaching will beat talent that aren't being coached as well.
No,
Jack,
I don't.
Jack, let's get into the rankings a little bit. Even they're all over the place, right? A lot of big upsets that happened. And to note, UConn is ranked 20th, guys, just to let you know. So I mean, they made it into the top 20, believe it or not. All right. So Jack, I don't know if you watched Michigan against Ohio State or not. Big game. And Michigan they blew them out 45-23. They're talking maybe Michigan plays Georgia this year. If Michigan plays Georgia, who wins that, Jack?
Wow, Michigan won that game in the second half yesterday. Really, Ohio State wasn't looking bad, and then it just all fell apart. It's amazing. One bad half is going to define a team's entire season, and they might not even be in the college playoffs now based on just one bad half. Something about Michigan, you think they're on this kind of run and destiny is with them. But with that said, I would think Georgia. I know they lost a lot of their defensive players from last year, but they still have a pretty stingy defense, and I'd still give them an edge over Michigan.
Robert, does Ohio State have a chance to get the national championship? I mean, they lost to Michigan. They lost the division title there. So do they have a chance of getting in?
Well, I would say they have a chance per se because there's not a lot of great teams in that rim right now. But Ryan Day's second, my theory was when Ryan Day took over as coach, that the team would look great year one post Urban Meyer. But remember, pandemic year was 2020. They didn't play each other in 2020. So technically, the second year Ryan Day was there with that theory I have, they lost to Ohio State. And then we thought maybe it was a fluke because it was in Michigan. And then they go up and beat Ohio State by 3 touchdowns. So Ryan Day is probably not going to keep this team at the level of an Urban Meyer, and it may go down even further. They're just not physical enough. They almost lost to Notre Dame, guys. You know.
Yeah.
So
Jack, I mean,
go ahead.
We've talked about Harbaugh. You don't necessarily like Jim Harbaugh that much. Did he outcoach the Ohio State coach yesterday?
No, I wouldn't say so. No, I think it was just a collapse by Ohio State on defense. I mean, missed assignments. And, the one thing about Jim Harbaugh, you wonder, does he have an eye on going back to the NFL? Because if they go to the college playoffs this year, and it appears that they are, his stock is never going to be higher, okay? And he had success with the 49ers, taking him to a Super Bowl. So this would be the time. And there's some owner out there who would give him an incredibly big long-term contract. So I don't know what you guys think. Is he committed to Michigan long-term? Or does he have an eye on the NFL?
I got to run, guys.
Okay, Robert. Thanks for coming in.
Always good seeing you.
Have a good show, guys.
Robert. Have a good one.
James.
The one thing about Jim Harbaugh, you got to figure out, he's going against the grain because most teams want to spread offenses, go wide. I mean, throw the ball all over the place. He's going to run the ball, and he did that at Stanford. He's going to be run. He's going to be physical defenses, and they're going to play. And that's what he got Ohio State with. He said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And it didn't happen until the second half. If you remember, he could run the ball. Yeah. And he was running with his backup running back. That's just the Michigan way. And that's Jim Harbaugh more than the Michigan way. Play hard defense and run the ball.
Pickle says Georgia would eat Michigan alive. I don't believe that's true. I think they're very much alike. I think they both play smash mouth football, and it's going to be a very physical game. I think it's going to be very close. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan wins that.
The only problem that Michigan has is Georgia's got 3 tight ends that are probably going to be high draft picks. Those tight ends really good, but it's going to be a physical smash mouth game. And Michigan might be one of the only teams that can physically match up with Georgia. They might be one of the only few teams.
I'm going to tell you guys, they've got to change the playoff format. I mean, expand it in college football. It's ridiculous that Ohio State could be 11-1 and maybe not be in the playoffs. I mean,
but who did you replace them with? Because you got to look at Georgia's number 1. Michigan will probably be number 2. TCU is an interesting thing.
TCU they're going to get in. TCU is going to get in.
So who's the 4th team? Is it USC? USC is playing pretty good right now. Or is it another team like you said?
USC would be a sentimental favorite because
you think so?
Yeah, the USC program has been lagging in recent years. Mm-hmm. Now that it's back, I think that makes them a sentimental favorite.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see Ohio State and Michigan and USC play. That'd be interesting. But this is what happened with the transfer portal. You're making teams that obviously – look at South Carolina. South Carolina beating Clemson yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all transfer. Their quarterback was at Oklahoma last year, Spencer Rattler. This transfer portal is making things a little different.
Very different, Jim. Very different. It's like a free agency towards the NFL. And, I told everybody, and they laughed at me, and Jack kind of agreed with me, they should run college. They should have a draft. They should draft the kids from high school just like they do college. Yeah. And the free agency is just like the pros do it. Run it the same way, and you might see a change in college football. So I just think that would be good. So.
But if a kid went to court or something, maybe they could have a rule. If a kid doesn't go to that one school, doesn't want to, he could go to any college he wants, but he can't play football his freshman year.
Why would you do that? Why can't you have a choice? You're telling kids, just like the NFL, you got to go.
You didn't have a choice. Listen, when you were drafted by the NFL. You didn't have a choice. You had to
No,
go.
but that's different. This is college.
No, it's not different.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, Jim, I mean, you lucked out being taken.
Yes, you were a black team.
Marino. You lucked out there.
Right?
Oh, wait, what are you complaining about?
You went to Syracuse, correct? Huh?
What?
You went to Syracuse, right?
No, I went to Brooklyn College.
Brooklyn College.
Yeah.
Say if you didn't go to Brooklyn College, they told you had to go to Timbuktu. I'm just saying that's not right.
With my grades, Jim, I wasn't going to argue. I was going to go wherever.
Jim, I just think this is it. The genie's out of the bottle. College football will never be the same. And, be happy you're going to college and so you don't have a choice. So what?
Jim, if you were drafted, let's say what Max said, proposed, which was a great idea, I backed 100%. You were drafted out of high school, let's say by Rutgers.
That's what I'm saying.
Town team. You would have gone there, probably accepted and played football the first year. Where might you have declined? If you were picked somewhere like Nebraska, if you wanted to play bad enough, chances are you would have gone to whatever school.
I just like having the choice of where I want to go. That's all. And I think that you should have the choice. You don't have that in the NFL because obviously you're getting paid a substantial.
If you have a choice, just don't play football the first year, be a student, and by your sophomore year, you can play whatever school you go to.
And Jim,
I might have ended up in Connecticut. Oh, God.
Yes. And Jim, Jim, they are getting paid. They're getting paid by the sponsors and all that stuff. So, I think it's the same. But, I know you disagree, so it is.
Jim scared one of the Philadelphia schools like Temple, Villanova may have drafted him.
That is true.
Hey, Pats, could you imagine Jim Jeffcoat and Reggie White on that team?
In Villanova?
Well, we had Clyde Simmons, who was also like a Jim Jeffcoat type. So, that we had our own Jim Jeffcoat. His name was Clyde. They very similar styles, actually.
Jim is a lot better than
I don't know. You guys obviously never played against each other like directly.
We never played. I know Clyde,
but yeah. I would say that obviously Jim got to the quarterback a little bit more, but not. Again, Jim and Clyde both had great lines playing with them.
A little bit more. A little bit. Pags. He's a member of the 100 Sack Club. What do you mean a little bit more?
It's Clyde. Clyde's a member of the 100 Sack Club.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
He's only got 96. He's only got 96 sacks.
That's
so
close. That's close.
but so we're 4 away. But I'm saying they both share of really great lines that they were playing with. So Jim, if Jim was playing with like the defensive line of the Jets, he may have only had like 77 sacks. I stick with that because that's his number.
Jim would have had more with Klecko and Gastineau. Come on, imagine that.
Marty Lyon.
Jim would have loved to play with those guys.
Well, maybe Mark Gastineau wouldn't have had the record of 23 sacks in a season.
Hey, listen, I can imagine him on the Giants with Marshall. That would have been a heck of a tandem there.
Putting LT in that mix too, and all of a sudden you got a formidable.
Well, they did have a form. They had a hell of a defense. Now
they did.
I seen it in person what they could do to people.
Yeah, very, very aggressive.
Well, that was the one thing. That was the one thing that Buddy Ryan really started to hammer home, and everybody followed suit. Jimmy Johnson, he was pretty vocal about saying, we're going to mold our team to beat the Eagles. If we beat the Eagles, everybody else in the NFL. And he was right. Just because if you were able to beat that defense, there was no defense that was going to be able to stop you. And that's how he molded his team. And Buddy Ryan put the emphasis back.
He wasn't worried about it. He hated Buddy Ryan. He wasn't thinking about the damn Eagles. He was thinking about the Washington football team. That's who he wanted to be. Trust me.
Yeah.
He wasn't. He just hated.
No, he only said that. He only said that in.
State.
So he only said that in interviews a couple times, just for show. He really cared
He
about
wasn't
Washington,
thinking about
but he
Eagles.
said it in interviews.
He hated
that he
Buddy Ryan. He despised Buddy Ryan, and that goes back to Oklahoma State.
Yes.
And the reason is because when Jimmy left for Miami, Oklahoma State went on probation, and Buddy Ryan was an old Oklahoma State guy, and he always talked about it. The reason Jimmy got the Cowboys job is because him and Jerry Jones were buddies, and it pissed Jimmy off. They were about to fight at the middle of the field. Listen, I was there.
Jim, you don't let go of a grudge, Jim. I mean, just because Buddy Ryan sent one of his players to go after your knees during a game to try to injure you, you don't.
He did.
No forgiveness.
He did. There is no forgiveness.
I will say this about Buddy Ryan. As obnoxious as he was, there's a soft spot in my heart for him because all his years with the Jets. He was the coach defensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl. And also, when they asked him when he was coaching the Eagles during the prime of Marino, Elway, Montana, they asked him, who's the greatest quarterback you ever saw? And he said, Joe Namath.
Well, there you
So
go.
I kind of got a kick out of that.
Yeah, because they partied. They partied in New York City.
Oh, yeah. He idolized Namath.
You notice with Jack,
Joe Willie.
You notice it always comes back to the Jets with Jack, right? I mean, Buddy Ryan and Joe Namath, who threw more interceptions than touchdowns. I mean, come on, Jack. The Jets.
We have Brett Favre quarterbacking for us for a year.
Yeah, you did.
True.
And Vinny Testaverde too, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's not on the level of Brett Favre. Just one quick question, Jim. We're talking about who was the greatest defensive lineman, tackle you ever played with. I'm going to tell you who I think. Bruce Smith.
Bruce Smith would be one, and Randy White. They were different. They talk about Micah Parsons and that play he made.
Yeah.
Ran down a tight end. Go Google Randy White chases down a wide receiver. Randy was different. Randy was a different guy, and he was great to play with. But he was there. But Bruce Smith was there's not probably ever be another Bruce Smith. And it's kind of people talk about the Super Bowls, but Bruce was a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah.
To be that big and athletic.
Guys, we're going to get to the picks, but I got one question for you, Jim. Who was better, Randy White or Mr. Cowboy himself?
Bob Lilly?
Yeah.
A different era, but Lilly was bigger. And Lilly, it was funny. You talk to Bob, and Tom Landry would say, well, you need to do it this way. He said, Coach, I'm making plays.
Right.
I'm going to do it the way I know how. And that was it.
Right.
Bob was something.
He was a monster. That man was a monster.
And he was big for that time.
How much did Randy White benefit from Ed Jones?
Yeah, and Harvey Martin. But Randy White was just, Randy White, when you look at his career, he had over 115 sacks.
Wow.
Before it. That's pretty impressive. That's the kind of player he was. And they benefited from each other. You got Harvey Martin, you got Randy White, you got Ed Too Tall Jones.
So Randy White and Too Tall Jones won Super Bowls from before, right? They got one Super Bowl each?
No. Ed won 2 and Randy won 2. No, Randy won 1. No, he won 2.
So they were both there for the Starbuck years.
Yeah, and then Randy and Harvey Martin were co-MVPs.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, I think that's the first time that ever happened, I think. Or maybe the last.
Because I remember the one thing that I remember is that it was Randy White and Danny White. Danny White was the quarterback and the punter.
Yeah.
And they didn't win anything with either one of
those.
them.
No, not with Randy, not with Danny White. Right. Danny was just kind of like Romo. He put up a lot of stats, and he was a great guy, but they just couldn't win the big one.
He was a punter too, Danny White, which is unusual. How do you have a guy quarterback and a punter? Imagine in this day and age you had a guy do it.
But he was Starbuck's backup. They went to 3 straight NFC championship games with Danny White. They just couldn't get over the top.
Right.
Because of Danny White and
No, it's just they just couldn't get over the top. They, something happened. It was Washington or George Allen. I forgot who else the other
Yeah.
teams.
So, guys, let's get to our picks. We got the Giants and playing the Cowboys. Is that Christmas Day, guys?
No, that's already played.
I picked the Cowboys. I think
the Cowboys win that game. They win that game.
Do they win?
Did you know that what's his name? McCartney was 0-2. The Cowboys have lost the last 4 Thanksgiving games.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
until this
I got it right now, guys. The producer straightened me out. We got the Broncos at the Panthers. Well, let's turn it over to Jack. Broncos at the Panthers. Panthers are now 3-6. The Broncos are 3-7. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, it's a mess with, both teams. When you think of the Broncos, they're tied into Russell Wilson for a while, giving them, the what was it, a 3 or 4 year contract guaranteed. So they have to stick with him. But the Carolina Panthers, they're playing musical chairs at quarterback. Sam Darnold is back starting today. He gets off to a bad start. He might get yanked for Baker Mayfield, and interim coach Steve Wilkes. I mean, it's a mess. Both teams at Carolina. I'll go with the Panthers to win. I'm interested to see how Patrick Surtain, the Bronco quarterback, bounces back from his game against Devontae Adams. Adams did a job on him with the Raiders, and Surtain was considered one of the elite cornerbacks. And to get destroyed in a game like that, I kind of want to see how he comes back, in this particular game. I like the Panthers to win this game, something like 26-17. They'll have a big game.
What do you got, Pax?
The over/under is what speaks the biggest volumes here. The over/under. I've not seen a line this low in forever at 36.
Wow.
I got this as a 10-10 tie. I think these teams stink.
Hi, I love it.
I think these teams stink, and I think that they are equal. That the fact that the line is a half of a point by the Panthers tells me that Vegas also thinks it's going to be a tie or a 1-point win. So I wouldn't be surprised if they lose, if one team loses 10-9, going for a 2-point conversion and missing it at the end.
Right.
But I would also not be surprised to see a tie 10-10.
Pags, I got for the picks, I got to get you with one team. So who would you pick if you had to?
The Panthers. I think the Broncos still stink out loud.
Okay. Jim, what do you got?
I think I'm going to go with the Panthers.
Wow.
And the only reason I'm going with the Panthers is because they're at home. I think Denver has struggled, and the whole AFC West, other than Kansas City, has struggled. And I think I thought that was going to be a big-time league before, but they're not that division. But I'm going to go with the Panthers. I think they're going to be able to run the ball better than people anticipate. Sam Darnold's not going to win the game for you.
No.
He's a former Jet. He's part of that band, the former Jet quarterback.
Hey, I wanted to move. I wanted to trade him. Don't get on me for that.
But I'm going to go with the Panthers.
All right. So I'm taking the Panthers too. We all got the Panthers. Pickles is the only one different. He's got the Broncos by 4.
The Broncos by 4.
Yeah. So Pickles.
Who's going to run the ball, Pickles?
Right. Exactly. So Pickles bad pick this time. You know me pretty much on it.
Hey, what's Pickles' record? Is he with us? Is he tied with us?
No, we really he's close. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. He's up there. We got the Falcons at the Commanders. The Commanders with the defense with Chase might be out for a little while. That might affect them. Jim, what do you think? Do you think the Commanders will beat the Falcons?
Yes, I do. I think just the NFC East teams are the quality league and I think the NFC South is not a very good division right now. And I think Washington, like we said earlier in the show, Heineke, they're rallying around them, right or wrong, they're rallying around them. And I think Washington has more offensive weapons than Atlanta.
Okay. And Pags, who do you got? I think I know who you're going with. I think you're going with the Falcons. Is that right?
Well, I wonder if Washington looks at this and it might be a little bit of a trap game for them, as their Giants next, that they think that they could just run over the Falcons. And the Falcons still have a really strong opportunity of winning that division. So I think this is going to be a lot closer game than everybody thinks it is. I think that if I'm doing a money line bet, I think the Commanders are able to pull it out, but it's going to be, it wouldn't surprise me to watch Atlanta beat them. And I think it's because of that trap style game that they may be looking past them for the Giants, thinking that they're ready to, overtake them in the division and, not think about the team right in front of them.
All right. So Pags is with the Commanders. Jack, who do you got?
Yeah, I basically agree with both Jim and Pags. I don't have too much more to add on to it. Washington just seems to be a little more steady. I know the Falcons only a half game behind the Buccaneers for the division, but Kyle Pitts, he's going to be out for the year, I believe,
Yes.
and he's that great tight end, the big part of the offense. And in close games like today, which I think is going to be a close game, a Kyle Pitts would be a major difference maker. So I like Washington, something like 23-17.
I think this is the first time that we've all agreed on the first two picks, which probably means that we're going to lose both games. Just so So we got the Bengals and the Titans. Burrow's playing better. The Titans, of course, you got to stop Henry, and Tannehill will make the throws, I think, when he has to. Just hope he doesn't turn the ball over. I'm going to take the Titans to win this game. What do you got, Pags?
The fact that this is the Bengals are favored in this by 1 is telling to me. I like the Bengals here. I think the Bengals win this game outright, and it's probably by 3 or 4 points. Not, like I said, I think that that line telling me that they prefer the Bengals, that Vegas prefers the Bengals here, makes me think that the Bengals are starting to hit on all cylinders at the right time.
Okay, and Jack, what do you got?
Pags is a very suspicious guy with the line. I mean, that's why he picked the Cowboys over the Vikings. Pags, reads into stuff, and he was right in that. But I don't think there's any hanky-panky there. They're two evenly matched teams. But Jamar Chase is out for the Bengals. And that, talking about difference makers, Ryan Tannehill says it's not a revenge game for the Titans.
Dixon's out too.
Yes.
These are kind of revenge games. A team knocks you out of the playoffs last year when you were the number 1 seed. You're playing them in a big game late in the year. You remember, let's put it that way. I like, it's going to be a thriller. It'll come down to the wire. Let's say the Titans 24-23.
Jack with the seldom used phrase hanky-panky. So there you go. So that's a great phrase. Jim, who do you got?
I was listening to my good friend Pags, but the reason I'm picking the Titans is because Joe Mixon is out, and then you have Jamar Chase. I don't know if they have enough guys that can. They've always had issues with their offensive line, and the Pirine is going to run the ball, and Higgins is going to make some plays, but you still got Derrick Henry on the other side, and their receivers actually are playing better for the Titans now.
All right,
and I'm just going to go with the Titans winning in a close game.
Pickles with a weather update says there'll be 40-mile-per-hour winds at kickoff in Nashville.
Wow.
And he's a Titans fan, and he takes the Titans by 6. So he's on board with some of us anyway. We got the Bears at the Jets, Jack. The Bears, of course, with Fields, will probably have a good game against the Jets running. Maybe
Fields isn't going to be playing. I don't think he's playing. I mean, I don't know. Is he definitely out?
No, he's questionable. He could possibly play.
But they're supposed to be going with Trevor Siemian, who's a career backup, and they took Nate Perlman, the Bears, off their practice squad as a backup to Siemian. And I'm licking my chops if Simeon and Perlman are the quarterbacks because the Jet defense is going to feast on those guys. But the Jets are going to have to muster some offense under Mike White, who's starting for them. And in the games at the Meadowlands and the reaction of the Jet fans, that's what I'm going to be listening to. Because if Mike White has a really big game, what does that say for Zach Wilson? And in all your years in the NFL, Jim, have you ever seen anything like the Jets did? They're not letting Zach Wilson dress, and it's not for discipline reasons. They're just shutting him down. That's crazy. Crazy. Let him at least be in.
I have never seen anything like it.
It is insane. Something's going on between the ownership, the GM, and the head coach, Robert Salah. I don't know what. But I think when the smoke clears, the Jets win a low-scoring game by a few points. People go home happy, but the question marks remain.
What do you
Now,
think,
correct
Pat?
me if I'm wrong. Mike White started a couple games and won a couple games last year, right?
He was erratic. He had one big game that kind of made him a folk hero for a little while, and then he's max equivalent of Zappy with the Patriots. People get excited over performance, but let's see if Mike White has a big game today. How do you start talking about bringing Zach Wilson back? Jet fans are further going to be antagonistic towards him if that happens.
Didn't Zach Wilson, that's basically self-inflicted wounds, what he said after the New England.
But that's not enough to put him out of uniform. That's enough to maybe demote him, and have him lose his starting job. But he's not allowed to dress for this game. And you know full well, Jim, coaches have to prepare for the next game. They don't have the time to heal Zach Wilson and spend time with him. They have to concentrate on the game coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So Pax, who do you got? Bears versus Jets. I know you love the Jets, Pax.
Again, this is one of these games that I think is going to be really ridiculously low scoring. Because this is, when they make decisions on whether there's cancer in the locker room or not, because that's really what this Zach Wilson is. Is it a cancer? And you cut out the cancer and you see how well you heal. Well, when you cut out that big of a cancer, there's going to take time to heal. I think that this is a game where the Bears could actually win it outright. So I actually have the Bears surprising the Jets and winning in New York.
Jim, what do you think?
I think the Jets will win. I think the Bears, with Justin Fields' injuries, are going to be a little bit have problems. Just like Pax said, they're not going to score very much. The Jets have an opportunity to score being at home more than their defense is actually pretty good. The Jets, so I think
excellent. Yeah.
So Pickles, by the way, has the Jets by 4.
Just one thing, guys. Michael LaFleur, the Jet offensive coordinator, is going to have to be held accountable in part for Zach Wilson. If Mike White and Joe Flacco struggle, the Jets are going to have to go back to Zach Wilson. And if he doesn't perform, maybe you have to take a look at how he's being coached.
Yeah, that's true.
So Jets has, Pickles has the Jets by 4. He says Fields has a separated shoulder. I'm not sure about that or not.
I think it's right. I think he's got some torn ligaments in it.
It's non-shoulder. He can maybe play, but the Bears want to risk their franchise quarterback in this spot.
That is true.
I got you. And as I said, I have the Bears. The Bucs at the Cleveland Browns. It seems like the Bucs are starting to kick it into gear. Brady's playing better. Their defense is playing a little bit better. Cleveland, of course, has one of the best running backs in the game, and Chubb. I don't know. What do you think, Jim? Do you think that the Browns could upset Tampa Bay?
No, I think the Browns organization has struggled with Stefanski. I don't think he's that great of a coach, and I think they have talent, but their talent doesn't play up to it. I mean, Chubbs and all these guys they have, and on defense, and they just don't play well. And I'm going to go in, and they're waiting about Deshaun Watson coming back. It's not going to help them. That's just one of those franchises that's awful.
If you like Fellas, but if you like a guy and if the Brown team likes Jacoby Brissett a lot, they're going to rally around him this week because this is going to be his last start because Deshaun Watson is eligible next week against the Houston Texans, ironically. I have the feeling they're going to rally around Jacoby Brissett this game, and they're going to edge out the Buccaneers, squeak by them. The Buccaneers, the perception is they're playing better. They're only 5-5, and they got to 5-5 in part. What was it, the game before last? They barely got by the LA Rams, who've been a sad case this year. So I get the feeling the game's in Cleveland. The crowd is always up there, regardless of the record. Jacoby Brissett's last game, they somehow, get by the Buccaneers today.
Pags?
I don't think anybody cares about Jacoby Brissett, and I think that Tampa Bay wins this game by a touchdown at least.
Okay. Jim also has the Bucks.
Yes.
As well as I do. Jim, when you're playing defense as a defensive end, and Myles Garrett is one of the better ones in the league, how frustrating is it when you're on a team that doesn't know what direction to go in? They're
and it's very frustrating because you can't tell. And like you said, they got two really good running backs at Cleveland. They got a defense, but they can't get over here. I think that's more coaching than players. They let that locker room is not a good locker room. Obviously, we've seen that with Odell Beckham, and we saw that with the Mayfield and stuff like that. There's issues in that locker room, and you're going to have to take a strong personality to take that team and to get it better. It's going to have to be a coach that's going to have to he's going to have to put the hammer down because there's a lot of personalities in that locker room. There are a lot of me guys, and you see it every week.
And we Jack mentioned Deshaun Watson. I really don't think Deshaun Watson makes a big difference this year.
No.
Maybe
Not
next
year, no.
Yeah, maybe next year,
but not this year.
You've just mentioned a guy who's been part of a losing culture who didn't deserve it, who retired a few years ago, Joe Thomas, Cleveland Brown legend. It was kind of cruel to him to be on a losing team like all those years, such a great player like that.
Exactly.
Pags, you got the Bucks. So, okay, that's three of us for Bucks and Jack over there with the Browns. The Ravens go in to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Ravens are still in the hunt. I think they're in first place at 6-4.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, Jackson
7-3, right?
How much?
6-4.
Well, 6-4. Right. My apologies.
So the Ravens.
The Ravens are 7-3.
That's right.
7-3.
Yeah. What? Come on, man. You're correcting me when I'm right. What's down to? I wouldn't want to be a player and you guys as my coordinators.
Yeah. Why'd you bring me into this? I'm minding my own business.
Along with them.
Jim's the one that's saying stuff. I'm over here being quiet.
Yeah.
I'm throwing Jim under the bus now.
Jim was more patient as a player than he was as a coach. Jim lacked patience as a coach. As a player, he was cool and calm, but as a coach.
Well, the Ravens are 7-3. So let's go on with the pick, Jack.
All right.
Since I interrupted you guys, I'll just get my pick out of the way. The Ravens, they should win at Jacksonville. Jacksonville's marginally better than they were last year. They have a more stable culture than under Urban Meyer. Trevor Lawrence hasn't progressed as fast as I thought he would. He's shown a little upside, but he's got a ways to go. And and the Ravens better sign Lamar Jackson when they have the chance. But the Ravens should win this game, but by about 11 points or so.
All right. Pags, what do you got?
Yeah, I think that the Jags are done for this season, that they won a couple of games and that they've made it as far as they're going to. And now they're going to compete for like the top 5 pick in the draft. I have the Ravens winning this game. The spread being 3.5, I think that they double that at least.
I have a sneaky feeling that Jim Jeffcoat's going to go with the Jags.
I'm not, but here's the interesting thing. Everybody, I'm going with the Ravens. but the Ravens are 3-7, but they've scored 216 points, and they've only given up 205, so that's a plus 11. Obviously, Baltimore is the better team, and it's all determined on the health of Lamar Jackson. He's having hip issues, and that's the scary thing. We all talk about him getting a new contract. Are you going that style quarterback? Are you going to pay him that kind of money and guarantee it? But I'm going to go with the Ravens.
And just to correct it, the Ravens are not 3-7; they're 7-3. Just
No, I'm saying
Right.
that Jacksonville is 3-7.
okay. All right. There you go. So we got the Houston Texans playing the Dolphins. What? Yeah, I took the Ravens. Houston is at Miami. I still think Tua has to prove himself a little bit more before I start thinking that he's a franchise quarterback. I love their receivers. I like their running game. I like their defense. I don't think Houston is really going to stand up to that Dolphin offense, so I'm going to take Miami. What do you got?
Yeah,
Jim?
the easiest game to pick of the season, the Dolphins by really about 27 points or so. Houston made a quarterback change. They finally moved on from, what's his name, Davis Mills? So, and Houston's just playing out bad. In the cornerback position, they're somewhat solid, but otherwise, I mean, they're looking at the number one pick in the draft, and I'm sure they're studying the quarterbacks, what they're going to do going forward. So Miami easily in the route.
What do you think, Pax?
Not a route, but Miami. I would take Houston with the points. They're getting 14 points. I actually think Houston keeps it a lot closer than everybody thinks. It's almost to me like a ridiculous upset special. I tell you, Miami likes every season. Miami likes to blow a game or be part of a big upset, whether it's the one being the team that upset the other team or the team being upset. It wouldn't surprise me that the Texans win this game. However, I'm going to stick with you guys and say that 14 points just means that they're going to win the game, and it may be only a 3-point win.
What do you think, Jim?
I'm going with Miami. I think Miami is just Houston's got a lot of issues. They haven't played. They play hard, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Lovie Smith is gone after this year. It wouldn't shock me.
Wow.
I just think that Houston is now that is a fire right there. There's a brush fire there. I mean, they're just not very good.
Well, I mean, they do play in close games, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, they have lost a lot of close games. They just don't know how to win yet. And, we've talked about that before. You got to learn how to win in football. Sounds stupid, but it's true because, those close games, you should be winning instead of losing. And that's something that every good team learns how to do.
Yeah, and Houston's lost 5 in a row, you got to remember.
Right.
Houston's lost 5 in a row.
Not only that, but I look at this team, and when O'Brien left, I mean, it was such a dumpster that they wound up getting rid of everything, and they're trying to start a whole new culture.
Yeah.
So, you're going to have these games where you really – I mean, this team stinks, but you have to be able to start the base somewhere. So the fact that they're playing hard, I think, is why Lovie stays, because you can't flip-flop again. You can't just keep switching coaches and hoping to get lucky on the roll. You have to be able to start somewhere, even if it's to build the right culture of doing things so that you can start to build forward, whether it be with this coach, with this quarterback, with even most of this team or not. You have to start somewhere. And everything was so disheveled once O'Brien left that they had to start at a very low base and then start building up again.
Jack, you look like you wanted to say something today. What do you got to say?
Yeah, Mac, I mean, you said it best. Teams have to learn how to win. I'm tired of hearing about all the close losses. Every losing team in the NFL has lost the majority of their games by a somewhat close score. I mean, and what happens the following season, the same thing happens. In the year after, So, it's all about winning. I'm kind of about moral victories. I mean, you throw those out the window after a while. I mean, once a team has 1 year and they're on an upswing, no more. I don't want to hear about the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. Well, we lost a lot of close games. The Lions, I don't want to hear about that at the end of the year. A lot of close games. Because once you lose a lot of close games 1 year, let's see you bounce back the next year, like the Minnesota Vikings have done this year. Last year, they lost a lot of close games, but they build on that, and they're one of the better teams this year. So it's all about winning. That's the bottom line.
Well, Jim, I know one thing being a player and coach, I think you do too. You lose games more than you win the games. I mean, it's because that you make these mistakes that you lose the games. And it's not necessarily the other team being better than you.
That I agree. The thing I always remember about coaching for Bill Parcells, and he says that there are about 10 to 12 plays within a game that determine the winner and losers. And that is true if you look at it, because there's those plays that made the difference in the game. It might be a long run. It might be a long pass. It might be a fumble or something of that nature. But there's about 10 to 12 plays that determine the plays.
And very well said. The Chargers go into Arizona. I guess Kyle Murray's playing better, but he's still a me guy. He's still, he's fighting on the sidelines with the coaches and the players and wants to call the plays. He's having an okay year. The Chargers are still alive. I think, I would take, the Chargers starting quarterback over Kyle Murray any day of the week. So I'm going to go with the Chargers, guys. I like them winning a pretty close game. So give me the Chargers at Arizona. What do you think, Pax?
Yeah, I think the Cardinals stink. I think that the Chargers have more to play for, and that's really all this game is going to be about. As I look at the game here, that it says Chargers try to shake tough losses and beat the Cardinals on the road, and it's like almost like it. And that's the headline of, hey, they shook those bad losses and they beat the Cardinals on the road. I think the Chargers win this game, and I think it's an ugly game. I think both of these teams are not great, and you see a little bit of back and forth, but I think the Chargers win.
What do you got, Jim?
I have the Chargers winning. I think just what you said about Kyler Murray. I think he's a me guy. I think he doesn't really care as long as he gets his stats. Justin Herbert is trying to win. I mean, because you remember early in the season, he got injured and he still played.
Yeah,
but I think, he broke his ribs. But I think Justin Herbert and everything you guys said about Staley, I think he's fighting for his job. He better make the playoffs so he won't have the job. I don't think it'll be Sean Payton that'll be the head coach there, but there'll be somebody. They're getting impatient with him, but I would take the Chargers. I think the Chargers going to win by at least 7 points.
How about you, Jack?
We were talking about Sean Payton early in the show where he might go to, and the Chargers would be an appealing job if it opened up because of Justin Herbert, who I think should be given serious consideration as the league MVP, even though they're only 5-5, all the injuries. He's been basically carrying this team, and he has them in playoff contention. I'll go with the Chargers to win today, but something about this is kind of like a trap game to me. You don't know about players' attitudes sometimes. Remember when we were kids, we'd always want to go out and win a game, even though there'd be nothing at stake. Maybe if Arizona shows up today, nothing's really in reality at stake for them today. They're not going to make the playoffs. And they show up and they're just enthusiastic. You never know what vibes they could have. But I'll go with the Chargers, because they do have a lot more riding on the game.
You got the Raiders going up against the Seahawks. The Raiders, they spent a boatload of money in them defensive the defensive line, and they really aren't playing well, guys. I don't know what's going on over there. The Seahawks, of course, is surprising everyone. Nobody thought they would be 6-4. This time this year. I mean, a lot of people picked on to finish in last place this year. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I like the young quarterback. Not young anymore. Geno Smith is anything but young, but he's been playing really well. 2 good wide receivers, a decent defense, a decent running game. I think they beat the Raiders in at home in a close game. What do you think, Jack? What do you got?
Yeah, I think if we had to evaluate to this point, which team had the best draft, okay, well, it would come down between the Jets and the Seahawks last year. The Seahawks had a great year, a great draft on the offensive line, running back, cornerback. I mean, it's just all. And the Raiders, I mean, what a disappointment this year. And not the Pags. Pags saw right through the AFC West. You didn't, Mac, but Pags did. He told you it wasn't going to be much. But they didn't either. They won last week. Does that jumpstart them, even though they beat a team like themselves in the Broncos? Does that get the Raiders going, perhaps? Does that change the culture within the organization that 1 week? Or the players have a bounce to their step this week when they show up at practice? But with that said, Seattle's a tough place to play in. There's a lot of enthusiasm there. They seem more together. I like Seattle something like 26-20 today.
Okay. And what about you, Jim?
DK Metcalf and Lockett are licking their chops against the Raiders. And Devontae Adams he's going to get his yardage, but the Raiders are not a good team. Let's be honest. I mean, they're just so what you said, their defense should be better with Max Crosby, but they haven't. Chandler Jones, but they haven't been. And I just think Seattle is more of a team, and they're playing team football, and they'll win today.
Let me ask you this. Josh McDaniels is set in his offensive philosophy. It worked at New England. He was highly successful there. And it seems like he doesn't want to get off his philosophy, and players are becoming frustrated. It's like a tug of war. Who should give in first? Should he force the players to adjust to him completely, or should he adjust to them?
That's a good question. I don't know I think McDaniels was a better coordinator than he is a head coach.
But he is calling the plays. He's basically in charge of the offense for the Raiders. He's, calling the schemes, what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, but there's different kind of, some coaches do call plays, but you're not dealing with just one position. You're dealing with a whole organization, defense, special teams, and things like that. And some coaches can handle that. And then some coaches struggle with that. And it seems like McDaniels is one who struggles with it.
Pags, who do you got on the Raiders and the Seahawks?
So I have the Seahawks, but my question to Jim is, how much do you think being in Vegas alone is affecting this team?
I think it does, Pax, and that's a good question. I think it does because everybody wants to come to Vegas, and some don't want to come for the game. They want to come for, obviously, the nightlife. And the players, too, after a game. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, that's what makes me think that this isn't just a team type of situation. When they win, they go out and celebrate, and it's real simple to get the glitz and the glamour and everything starts to get in your eyes, and now you're drinking a little too long than you were supposed to. Takes a little bit longer to recover. It's like then you have your people come in. So I'm beginning to think that it has more to do with just being in Las Vegas than it does being being anywhere else. I think that in Oakland, this team would be a much better team. The fact that they're not a better team means that Vegas is actually getting to the players. And that means you need a much stronger coach to be able to dictate to his team how he wants them to live. And I don't think that I don't think McDaniel's doing that.
I agree.
All right. So let's get into the next game. We got the Saints at the 49ers. I don't think this is close. I think the Saints, even though they have a good defense, are getting a little old. The 49ers, as I picked in the beginning of the year, I think me and Jim picked, are going to the Super Bowl. And I just think the 49ers run all over them. Jimmy Garoppolo makes a couple good passes, and they beat the Saints by about 20 guys. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I think the 49ers, they've started their Super Bowl push. This reminds me of a marathon. They've run a little behind the pack. Now they're with the lead pack, and they're going to start making their move. They've made it already, and I think they're going to have a deep playoff run if they don't go to the Super Bowl. And especially it's intriguing, Samuel McCaffrey. How are the two of them going to coexist together? What's it going to, Samuel, what's it going to do to his ego? Because he was the all-purpose player who did everything, and now he has someone that kind of mirrors him in a way. And, of course, there's going to be the Jimmy Garoppolo watch. Did the Niners sign him to a long-term deal next year and give up on the Trey Lance thing? There's so many implications involved, but the Niners, they should win this game decisively.
What do you think, Pax?
I mean, I have the 49ers winning this game because I just think that the Saints are cooked. Again, they're in that division where anybody could win the division if Brady decides that he wants to falter here. I wonder, are the Niners one hit away from Jimmy G to not being in the playoffs? If Jimmy G was to get hurt, would the 49ers have enough talent around a quarterback to not to be able to make the playoffs and to make this run without him? We already know that Jimmy G's the backup. I mean, they're doing this with the backup. And even though he was the starter last year and all this other stuff, if Trey Lance was able to play, would he play? And I think that question still looms. And I think that I don't think that the Saints have the defense to be able to get to Jimmy G well enough. But I wonder if this team is any good with their third string quarterback in there instead of Jimmy G.
All right, Jim, what do you got?
I'm going to go with San Francisco because I think, and everybody makes valid points, but I think San Francisco's running game is going to give New Orleans problems. I think that, obviously, I think McCaffrey and Samuels can coexist. I don't think that's the issue. But you got to remember, San Francisco also has Kittle, and they always have Brandon Ayuk, and nobody's talking about it. They have, and their defense is pretty good. Their defense is pretty good. So I think San Francisco is moving forward in that division to, make their move and make their run. And I just think San Francisco is a way better team than New Orleans, especially at home in Santa Clara.
All right. So the Rams go to Kansas City. The Rams seem like they're falling apart. Their defense is playing pretty well, but their offense with Matt Stafford, they're just not really doing anything. The Chiefs, to me, again, are the Super Bowl. To me, they're the Super Bowl pick for me anyway. I think they're going. Patrick Mahomes still doing his thing. A great tight end. Great group of receivers. The running game's coming along. I like Kansas City. What do you think, Jim? I got him. What do you think, Doug?
I knew that was coming.
Jim's getting himself a snack.
Yeah. What do you think, Doug?
I think that the Chiefs crushed them here. I mean, it's a 16-point line. I think that the Rams have chalked this one up. Hey, we're done. Let's see what best pick we can get. Oh, that's right. We don't have a pick.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. I think that they, if hungry dogs run faster, they ate too much last year, and that's the end of this run here.
That's a new saying.
The Rams are cooked. They're playing for nothing at all, and I don't see how they're going to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs unless the Chiefs suffer a colossal letdown. I mean, I would think the Chiefs would win by like 3 touchdowns or so, but you never know. Maybe the Chiefs aren't up for this game, but the Chiefs at this point in the season, the Rams are basically cooked.
Well, since Jim wasn't there when he originally picked, he doesn't get a chance to pick the game.
Oh, wait a minute. But, everybody talks about the Chiefs, but Andy Reid is a top 5 coach in the NFL. And he'll have them ready. And they'll beat, obviously, the Rams because the Rams have got all kind of – Stafford might not play today. They're playing a guy that's never played before. And I just think the Rams – and they're even talking about McVay possibly retiring after this year, and he's young to go into television.
Yeah.
So I just think the Rams are in disarray, and Kansas City will win it.
Wow, guys, we are like picking all the same teams. Wow, I haven't seen that either this year.
It's that time of year. We know.
Yeah, it is.
Have
it is. You start seeing. You start seeing who really is the best and who's not. Packers against the Eagles. I'll let you go with this, Pat, because I know you're taking the Packers. So go ahead.
We just have a way of beating Green Bay. I don't know that it's going to be. I don't know what this game's going to look like. I really, it makes me a little nervous that it's the way that the Eagles have played the last couple of weeks. I feel that this is the calm before that storm. Like this is where they, the dog days of summer ball, where it's just the season's droning on a little bit, and you got to make sure that you still win these games, but you're not putting forth the effort like you would be on that last push. And I think that, that being said, that's going to keep Green Bay in the mix here. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers of old anymore. I think that the one thing that we've noticed this year is that quarterbacks got old across the board. And I think that Aaron Rodgers is also part of that mix. I think that the Eagles win this game. I think, again, it's going to be an ugly game. I don't think it's going to be a very pretty game. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles lose, like they win the game and lose a spot in the power rankings because of it.
When do the Eagles play the Cowboys, Tags?
Christmas Eve.
Wow. So this is kind of in between the game in between them and Dallas, right? The Packers.
Well, so right? Packers. We also have the Titans next week. Then we have the Giants. Yeah. So I mean, we've got other games that we got to worry about. You got to look at the team in front of you and play that team. They got 2 more games today. I don't think that they're looking ahead.
Yeah, we got to pick up the pace a little bit.
I like the Eagles over the Packers. Clearly, the only apprehension I would have, it's a Sunday night game, and players love playing Sunday night because family, friends, everyone's watching them. You're more up if you're the only game going on at that moment. But the Eagles are just flat out better at this time of the year. So
Jack says we got to pick it up, and he gives us a long spiel about who's going to win. All right, Jim, who do you got?
Eagles blow out the Packers.
All right.
Okay, Pittsburgh at Indy, last game, I think.
Yep.
So let me take it. I mean, I like the Steelers to upset the Colts. Wow. I think any Mike Tomlin team is going to play hard. And 19-16, let's call it.
Okay, what do you got, Jim?
I got the Colts. Oh, excuse me. I have the Steelers winning this game.
Wow, holy moly.
Indianapolis.
Wow.
They're still looking for a coach.
Wow, that's something. How about you, Pags?
And a quarterback. I think they need a coach and a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Matt Ryan experience is over. I think that they played a little spirited, but Saturday, this is a game where Tomlin will outcoach Saturday without a doubt.
Holy
this is that's the one thing that I think happens.
Wow. So I'm the only one thinking the Colts are going to win this game. Wow. That's something else. I mean, I think the Colts are just a better team than the Steelers right now. The Steelers are rebuilding, and the Colts, while they're kind of rebuilding, I like Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. So, they also got a pretty
that's where the age kicks in. Like you think all these old quarterbacks are like great.
Well, I think they're good, Pags. I don't know if they're great, but I think they're good, and they got a pretty good running back too, don't they?
He gained 40 yards in that first drive, and then 40 yards for the rest of the game.
No,
he's going to run 125 yards. I think that's what you said last week, right? 125. I said let's bet $1 for each. That was Jack. Jack said he was going to run for 150.
I'll tell you, when Jonathan
for every yard under 120, $40.
Oh my God! All right, guys. So, by the way, the Giants will win this week because they got a bye. So the Giants will.
They don't have a bye. They lost already. You're not even right about that.
Pags, always keeping me on the straight and narrow. Thank you. So, folks, I want to thank you for joining us. Thank to Pickles, who did pick Pittsburgh pretty quick. So they got it by 3. Thanks, Pickles, for joining us. You're always fun having you on. For those who joined us, thanks for tuning in. This is my favorite show of the week anyway, and where we have some of the best guests. We had Robert on, who gives us great insight. Keith, who is a total professional. Pags here, who brings excitement to it. Jack, who continues to talk, even though, we're trying to get the show over with.
I'm a Priadonna co-host or whatever.
Oh, my God. Prima Donna, my friend, you're one of the best in the business. And Jim, again, great job today, as always. So, folks, have a great Sunday. Enjoy the games, and I hope your team wins.